In 1518, something strange happened in Strasbourg. Hundreds of people started dancing in the streets, and they couldn't stop. They danced for days until their feet bled. Some collapsed, some even died. No music, no festival, just endless, uncontrollable movement. History calls it the Dancing Plague, and maybe you've heard this story before. But what you probably haven't heard is the untold part. About a secret letter sent to the Vatican, about strange rituals performed in hidden chapels, and about a doctor named Paracelsus who dared to say this wasn't a curse, this was something deeper, and how he may have died for speaking out. Welcome to The Real Central. I'm your host, Josh Gultam, and this is the place where we dive into the most unique and unexpected stories from all around the world. If it's strange, surprising, or just downward fascinating, we're talking about it here. We are a new channel, so please subscribe to our channel and comment anything down below to push our channel higher. Thank you so much, guys. Let's continue to the video. For those who don't know about the Dancing Plague in 1518, it is one of the strangest events in history. It started in Strasbourg, a city that was part of the Holy Roman Empire, now in modern-day France. One day in July 1518, a woman named Frau Troffea walked into the street and started dancing. There was no music, no party. She danced for hours, then came back the next day and danced again. Within a week, dozens of people had joined her. Soon, more than 400 people were dancing non-stop. They didn't dance for fun. Many looked tired, sick, and confused. Some begged for help, but they couldn't stop moving. Witnesses said they danced until their feet bled, their bodies collapsed, and in some cases, they died from exhaustion. But this wasn't the only time it happened. Strange dancing outbreaks were also reported in Germany, Italy, and even the Netherlands between the 1300s and 1600s. Sometimes it happened in churches, sometimes on bridges, and always the same, dancing that nobody could stop. But the event in Strasbourg was the biggest and most well documented of all. Even the city leaders didn't know what to do. No one had answers, and because life at the time was full of stress and suffering, people were desperate to understand what was happening. That's what many believed at the time, and it led them straight to the church and the Vatican. In 1518, religion wasn't just a belief, it was a center of everyday life. People didn't have science to explain strange events, so when something unusual happened, they turned to the church. That's exactly what they did when the dancing plague started. Many believe it was a punishment from God or a curse sent by Saint Vitus, a saint connected to Caesar's shaking and uncontrollable movements. Some even thought the dancers were possessed by demons. The streets of Strasbourg, filled with people dancing until they drop, looked like something from a nightmare. To them, it had to be a supernatural. The church responded with action. Priests led prayers, victims were taken to religious shrines, especially the chapel of Saint Vitus in a town called Saverne. There, strange rituals were performed. Dancers wore red shoes, had their feet blessed with holy water, and were walked in circles around altars. These were not seen as medical treatments. They were spiritual ones, meant to fight off whatever dark force was believed to be controlling these people. And then, there were the rumors. Around the same time as the outbreak, it was said that the Bishop of Strasbourg had secretly written letters to Pope Leo X, the leader of the Catholic Church in Vatican. Some believed he was asking for help, or at least trying to warn the Pope about what was happening. But instead of making the crisis public, the Vatican may have given only one quiet instruction: don't alarm the people. At the time, the church was already under pressure. The Protestant Reformation had just begun, and the Vatican didn't want to look powerless in front of the growing religious rebellion. So rather than act openly, they may have told local leaders to handle it quietly, using spiritual rituals, and to avoid letting scientists or doctors investigate too closely. Where would they hide evidence of something like that? Inside the Vatican's massive private archive, the Archivum Apostolicum Vaticanum, once called the Secret Archive. It's located right behind St. Peter's Basilica, deep inside the Vatican. This archive holds over 85 kilometers of shelves packed with letters from bishops, reports of exorcisms, records of strange events, and private church communications dating back over 1,000 years. But here's the catch. Not just anyone can walk in. Only approved scholars with advanced degrees and clear research goals can apply for access. Even then, they're limited to reading rooms and specific files. And if a document is considered too sensitive, access can be denied without explanation. The most secret area, known as the Scrinium, is completely off limits. Only the Pope and few trusted Vatican staff can enter. If any document about the dancing plague is hidden, it's probably buried in there, where almost no one will ever see it. If there truly were Vatican instructions to keep the dancing plague a secret, it would explain a lot. There were no major exorcisms ordered, even though the event looked like a mass possession. But why? Maybe the church was afraid that if they failed to stop it, it would damage their authority. Or maybe they already knew this wasn't a curse or a demon, it was something deeper. A spiritual crisis mixed with social panic. And for a church trying to survive the rise of Protestantism, admitting that would have been too dangerous. To understand the dancing plague, we have to understand the world people lived in back then. In the Middle Ages, Europe was full of fear and faith. Life was hard. There were wars, hunger, deadly diseases, and no real science to explain any of it. So people turned to whatever they knew: religion, superstition, and old beliefs passed down through generations. Strange behavior wasn't seen as a mental or medical problem. It was often seen as the work of God, saints, or demons. If someone acted unusual, like screaming, shaking, or dancing without control, people believed it could be a punishment from heaven, a curse, or even a sign of the end of times. That's why the idea of Saint Vitus cursing people with the dance made perfect sense to them. Stories like this were new. Hundreds of years ago, before Strasbourg, people already believed that misbehaving or dancing at the wrong time, like during church services, could get you cursed to dance forever. In one story from the year 10 to 21, a priest in Germany cursed a group of people to dance non-stop for a whole year just because they interrupted Christmas Mass. There were also beliefs about the devil causing people to dance wildly, especially women or nuns. Some even thought secret religious cults were behind it, using dance as a sinful ritual. These ideas weren't just wild guesses, they were taken seriously by the church and the public. People were even exorcised or locked away because of dancing outbreaks. But not everyone believed in the curse of the dancing plague. 8 years later, after the infamous dancing plague, one man arrived in Strasbourg. He didn't believe this was a curse. To him, the answer wasn't in the heavens, it was in the human mind. And what he wrote would challenge everything people believe about the plague. A doctor named Paracelsus had a very different idea. He lived in the same century, and though he arrived in Strasbourg 8 years after the outbreak, he became one of the first people to study the case seriously and write about it in detail. He believed the dancing came from inside the people themselves, from their minds. In his book, Von der Männischen Krankheit, he said the first dancer, a woman named Frau Trophäa, might have started dancing just to embarrass her husband. According to him, her actions had nothing to do with spirits or curses. She just wanted attention. Or maybe she was full of stress and hidden rage. But what's more interesting is how he described the others. Paracelsus believed most of them were simply copying what they saw, trapped in emotional panic. He called the illness chorea lasciva, meaning shameless dancing. To him, it was all about stress, strong emotions, and bad thinking, not the devil or divine punishment. At that time, people didn't believe in mental health, but Paracelsus said that some illnesses were caused not by demons, but by belief. His words opened the door to a new way of thinking, a shift from superstition to science. But then, something strange happened. Paracelsus passed away in 1541, just 8 years after visiting Strasbourg. Officially, they said it was an accident, a fall, maybe an attack, but no one's sure Some said he was poisoned. Modern tests found high levels of mercury in his body, a chemical he used often, but one that can kill slowly. So, was it bad luck, or did someone want him gone? He had made enemies. He spoke out against the church. He challenged sacred beliefs, and in an age when questioning faith could mean death, it's possible his voice was silenced just when it was starting to be heard. Turns out dancing plague is still happening in the modern day, but now it changes its form. Centuries after the dancing plague of 1518, a strangely similar phenomenon has continued in Haiti through the powerful trance rituals of voodoo. In these ceremonies, participants fall into deep spiritual states where they move, scream, dance, and twist uncontrollably. To the people involved, their bodies are being ridden by spirits called Loa, ancient forces that use humans as vessels to communicate, bless, or punish. From the outside, it looks terrifying, but for those inside the ritual, it's sacred. One of the most striking documentations of this came from Maya Deren, an American artist and filmmaker who traveled to Haiti between 1947 and 1951. She wasn't just an observer, she was accepted into the community, allowed to film the trance dances, and even experienced a light trance herself. Her book, Divine Horsemen, The Living Gods of Haiti, and the film that followed, captured something almost no outsider had seen before. Women dancing with blank eyes, people walking on fire, drinking flaming rum, and moving for hours without rest, all under the influence of something they couldn't control. What's haunting is how much this mirrors Strasbourg in 1518. Spontaneous movement, spiritual meaning, and no clear medical explanation. Just like the dancing plague, people entered altered states, driven by rhythms, belief, and unseen forces. But this time, it wasn't treated as madness. It was embraced as part of their world. Maya Deren showed that maybe the question isn't just what caused the dancing, but what do we believe is moving us? And that's bringing us back to Strasbourg. Most experts today believe the dancing plague wasn't just caused by demons, curses, or even poison. The most accepted explanation is something called mass hysteria or mass psychogenic illness. It happens when a group of people all experience strange physical symptoms, not because they're sick in the body, but because of extreme stress, fear, or emotions that spread from person to person, like a virus. If you like this video and want to see more deep dives into more uni content, don't forget to subscribe. We've got more coming sooner or later. I'm your host, Josh Gultam. Thank you so much, guys. See you, and goodbye.